Hello, I'm radio host Fifi Box. Tonight, a very important Australian story about a little-known threat to our children's lives. Most of us have tiny batteries like these in our homes. 4 years ago, my daughter Trixie swallowed 3. She was one of the lucky ones. They didn't get stuck in her body, but the outcome can be very different. Tonight, we meet the courageous women spearheading the campaign to make Australia a world leader in child safety.
Threshold wind 110 degrees 6 knots, cleared to land.
Clear land, runway 13,
I don't think I could have done a lot of this without Andrea. Having somebody else with that same drive and passion was really important, and Andrea had my back and I had hers.
Oh my God.
When we first met, it was very overwhelming. We were very emotional, finally got to hug each other and just felt like we'd known each other our whole life.
There's literally a come down there and knocked on the window. Oh, I didn't see.
The circumstances that threw us together are tragic, but we lift each other up when we need it. I always call Alice and I sisters in arms. I feel like this is our mission now, to have these made safe, to keep fighting until something's done.
Sometimes we can have a laugh about it, because it's the only way we can get through it.
What Australia has achieved now is a world first, and we owe it almost entirely to Alison and Andrea's efforts, because without their stories, we wouldn't have been able to achieve what we have.
I'll do this for the rest of my life if I have to.
Sisters in arms.
Button batteries are really like cockroaches in our house. They are everywhere. The market has been flooded with a wide variety of products, from the essential to the inane. So what I want to show you is what happens when a child swallows a button battery. Kids are visual, opportunistic predators. They will grab and swallow anything. The sausage that I have here represents the child's esophagus, or the pipe that goes down to the child's stomach. And I'm just going to cut it open, and I'm going to put in the battery. And then what I'm going to do is put a little bit of water on, which is like swallowed saliva. We estimate that about 20 kids a week are presenting to emergency departments nationally with suspected button battery exposures. If we sit and watch this, very soon you'll see that the battery starts to bubble, and what's happening is the battery charge has now been activated inside the child, and we're going to start producing a caustic product. So it's sodium hydroxide. It's exactly the same as oven cleaner, and that oven cleaner eats through the tissue.
Battery manufacturers have known about the issue with button batteries for a really long time, and they know children are getting injured and children are dying, and yet they haven't improved their product. That makes me angry. People don't understand how dangerous they actually are and what damage they actually do if they fall into the wrong hands.
People should have been made aware. I had no idea what the effects of button batteries were, that they could kill a child. Summer was like a little bit of a tomboy, bit of a rat bag. So she was full on, and she was full of life. Summer was 4.5, and in kindy, when she started feeling unwell, she kept sort of saying her throat was sore, she kept spitting. Then she had black poo, and she'd still eat and play, but then she'd feel unwell again. I took her to the GP, and the last time he thought she had Giardia, which is a common gut infection. For 2 weeks, she had that battery in her throat, and no one had picked it up.
Ambulance, town or suburb emergency?
Taunton.
Just after midnight on the 30th of June 2013, Summer's brother woke me up and said Summer had a blood nose. Summer then threw up blood.
Honestly, I wouldn't ring if it was just a bleeding nose.
But you think it's
a lot of blood.
a lot of blood, yeah.
Initially, the doctors didn't take the situation too seriously, and so Summer was discharged. Andrea took Summer back to hospital, but the doctors discharged Summer again.
An hour later, Summer stood up and projectile vomited blood and collapsed.
I'm going to stay on the line with you as long as I can, okay? Oh my God. Okay, take a deep breath, sweetie. I know it's scary.
When we got back to the hospital, the most critical thing they did was x-ray her, and that's when they found the battery. The doctor said, at least we know what it is now. All we have to do is get her to Brisbane and take it out. So I thought she was going to be okay.
We're about 10 or so minutes off the pad with this young lass from Noosa. She's just had another big bleed.
When we know there's a button battery that's been swallowed and there's bleeding occurring, that means it's damaged the aorta or the biggest blood vessel in your body. We worked on Summer for about an hour in the operating theatre. There was nothing we could do for her, no.
I didn't want to let her go because I knew that'd be the last time I'd hold her.
A coronial inquest into the death of 4-year-old Summer Steer in 2013 started in Maroochydore today.
One of the toughest things to go through when a child dies like this is having to live through it all again and go through a coronial inquest. But at the same time, I wanted something to be done about it.
Day 2 of the coronial inquest into her death has heard that if an emergency x-ray had been taken, doctors would have known she was a walking time bomb.
Summer's death happened to be the first in Australia, and I was counsel assisting the coroner. We found that with the initial medical care, there were a number of missed opportunities, and that's because there was a narrow-mindedness in terms of the diagnostic thinking. It was complicated because Summer's initial symptoms were similar to lots of other childhood illnesses. We made 13 very detailed recommendations on ways to prevent this from happening again in the future. Making the batteries themselves safer, safe packaging, safe storage, having those products so that the battery doesn't just fall out. And we went above and beyond to spread the message. We wrote to button battery manufacturers, distributors, retailers, all of the health departments in Australia, state and territory, the Queensland government, the Commonwealth government. We wrote to the ACCC. We wrote to everyone we could think of. I did get the distinct impression that a lot of people thought that Summer's death was a freak accident and that it wouldn't be repeated again. But by the time we ran the inquest, there was already a second death in Victoria.
Bella was 14 months old. She had these big brown eyes and this beautiful cheeky smile. Her personality was really just coming out. Bella first became ill about 19 days before she passed away. She was very lethargic and not her usual self. We took her to the emergency department 3 times and it was believed that she had a virus. So we kept getting sent home. But as a parent, you know your child and you know when they're unwell. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I could hear coughing So I got up and ran into her room, and she was completely covered from head to toe in blood. I rushed to her home. We took a photo of the cot and we left Bella in her clothing because we really wanted to show the doctors that there was something really serious going on. And we rushed her to emergency. They performed an X-ray, and that's when they found there was a round metal object, which they believed was a coin. Then she went into cardiac arrest. A few days after Bella died, and we found out that it was button battery, we were shocked. Look, how could we not know that she swallowed a battery? How could we not know that batteries get stuck and can cause fatal bleeding? I think that was the hardest part. When Bella died in 2015, I went looking to see if there was another family who had experienced the same thing.
She was a beautiful little kid. She was happy, she was fun. I'd hate to see any other parent go through what myself and Andrew's been through.
Alison was in Melbourne and I was in Noosa, and she'd asked for me to contact her. I was really nervous about calling her because I know how she felt. And I felt responsible because I'd raised awareness about the button batteries, but it hadn't filtered down to Melbourne.
I'll never forget that phone call from Andrea, finally being able to speak to another mother who was going through exactly the same thing as I was. There were a lot of similarities between Bella and Summer. Both girls were misdiagnosed. Both Andrea and I don't know where these batteries came from.
Our house was searched. My mum's house was searched. Her kindy was searched, and nothing was found that would contain a button battery.
The very first day Bella got sick, she was also out at the park. It's possible that it was a button battery that had been disposed of incorrectly and she'd picked it up while she was playing at the park. For a long time after Bella died, Alison avoided telling people that Bella passed from a button battery ingestion, and I think some of that had to do with not wanting to be judged by other people. So she told people that she passed away from a cardiac arrest. What changed all that for me was one day I was out at Target and I was shopping with my son and my husband, and we were in the toy section, and I turned around and at the head of the aisle I could see button batteries on the shelving directly across the toy aisle, which attracts children. And I fell apart. It alarmed her that these batteries were low to the floor, to the point where Lachlan could have reached over and grabbed them off the shelf. And she remembers seeing them lined up at the register right next to where all the lollies and things are, which, you know, I guess doesn't really send a clear message either. So I contacted Target and I asked them to move their batteries and told them Bella's story and how they also had a responsibility to consumers and children in their stores. Immediately, Target Australia sent a directive to all their stores throughout Australia, asking them to move all button batteries up to a higher level and out of reach of children. I realised that by sharing her story, we could make a real big impact. And instead of being ashamed of how Bella died, instead it gave me some strength. It's actually really good that they're going to do something, considering there's nothing making them make the changes.
Yeah, but I think Target also realised that there's a potential safety issue within their store.
We kept thinking about the different things that needed to happen to make a child safe. So things like packaging of a button battery, you know, it shouldn't have a perforated back like it did when Alison was in Target. Products in the home, you know, they should be screwed down so a button battery can't fall out of it. A musical birthday card probably shouldn't be marketed to a child because it's not safe for a child.
There's no standard for an unsafe product. So you can literally buy anything overseas. Currently in Australia, we don't have a product safety law surrounding button batteries. It makes me angry that someone can produce a product that knows that it can kill children and there are no laws to stop them from doing so.
People recognise and connect to. Presently there's a voluntary code, which some product suppliers are doing a great job at abiding by, but there's a lot of products that come into Australia that do not follow any form of code at all, and that's where we really think there's a lot of room to move to improve that.
Merchandising people. Yeah. It's not just the responsibility of the parent to make sure that their child is safe. Manufacturers should have some corporate responsibility here. Marketers who are bringing in merchandise from China should have some responsibility. And I guess that sort of spurred Alison on to think, you know, she wanted to contact the ACCC. So Alison sat down and wrote them a letter outlining what she thought could be changed.
The ACCC has been working on raising awareness about button battery issues since at least 2012. I will never forget receiving Alison's letter about the tragic death of Isabella. That she had the courage and the strength to really think through the changes that could make a difference was not just admirable, it was also incredibly helpful, and it is something that has inspired the team at the ACCC that's been working on this tremendously.
We're going to come up with a few ideas of what we think we might like. Yeah.
We realised that there was another group of people that needed to be educated, and that's consumers, so mums and dads, grandparents and caregivers. So we put together a Facebook page to create button battery awareness.
You can do a search.
Oh, right. It's a search button.
It's the armband that was recalled.
Yeah.
A mother came to us and told us that her daughter came back from a party wearing a mouth guard, and she was complaining of burns to her gums. And it was because she'd been wearing this flashing mouth guard which had button batteries which were exposed to her saliva.
You can see that there's corrosion all around the battery and here as well.
We found them all over eBay and we made contact with them and brought it to their attention that the product was unsafe.
Very scary. We'd also report it to the ACCC to have a product recall issued.
While Alison was raising awareness in Melbourne, I was also raising awareness here in Queensland to organise Summer's Day again this year. I started Summer's Day, which raises awareness about the batteries, especially in primary schools. I've been fighting for 7 years. There's still 20 a week. Every time I hear a story about another child being seriously injured, it just makes me feel sick and frustrated because it's like, here we go again, and still nothing's being done.
I loved that dress. I loved it.
Oh, and a singlet.
The singlet. Oh my God. These were shorts. These were definitely shorts.
Yeah, they were short. I flew up to Queensland to meet Andrea and her son in July 2018. At least this is forever and you get to have it on your bed.
We went through Summer's clothes because her mother had offered to sew a bunch of Summer's clothes together to make a blanket.
Far out.
So, remember that first phone call you made to me? It would have been about 3 months after Bella died. Yeah. Andrea gave me, I'll never forget it, quite a lot of advice. That was the most important phone call ever. She warned me about the pressure the grief can cause.
After Summer died, I really went downhill. Summer's dad didn't handle it either. I was working as a vet nurse, and because I had so much anxiety, I couldn't do that anymore.
Andrea warned me that my marriage would be affected after losing Bella and possibly break down, and it did. Andrea and I were constantly hearing of more children having swallowed a button battery. We were conscious of the fact that this needs to be a national strategy. So in September 2019, Andrea and I went to Canberra to meet with some members of Parliament to talk about button batteries and the need for safety laws surrounding them.
Hello, my name's Andrea. My daughter Summer died after swallowing a button battery. She was the sunshine of my life. I miss her terribly. We had a breakfast function where there was a room full of politicians, and we both stood up separately and told our stories in the hope that someone would listen.
It was an incredible moment when Andrea and Alison spoke about the loss of their two beautiful daughters, and people who hadn't even heard about it as an issue were really quite struck by the stories that they heard. First thing I did when I came out of that breakfast was to go and find the Minister, Michael Sukkar, who is the Minister for the ACCC, and said, what are we doing? He said, yes, we are aware of what's going on and it's going through a process. I decided it was time to give a speech and to insert my experience, having been a paediatric gastroenterologist.
I rise to talk today about the health safety issues of button batteries. There is now an urgent need to increase product safety at the legislative level to stop unsafe products entering the Australian marketplace, both domestically and from overseas.
So I think that thing about the pressure-sensitive coating on the battery is really interesting. I've been working on this issue for 11 years. This has taken a significant public health effort to collate all of the evidence, to take that evidence to the regulator and to industry, to argue with industry that we actually need to do something about this issue, and then to take that result back to the Minister to try to land the legislation. And I'm sick of talking about it.
It's sad that we're still saying the same things over and over again and really nothing's changed. This will continue to happen. There's no doubt about that. You'd expect every 4 years or so we'll have a child die if we're the same as the States. So without legislative change, I can't see how that would change.
Parents are being reminded of the dangers of button batteries after a 3-year-old girl died from swallowing one.
When I heard that there'd been another girl, 3 years old, that died in circumstances that were almost a carbon copy to Summer's death, I was pissed off.
I'd actually heard a cough come out of the girl's room, and I went in and checked. Brittany was lying in a pool of blood, unconscious.
It needs to be more publicised about the batteries for every parent to know. Obviously, you have them in drawers for when you need them to replace, the battery goes flat, so never thought there was an issue.
We made simple recommendations that could have been picked up by the organisations responsible to make these products safer over 5 years ago. It wouldn't have taken a lot. And to this day, I don't know why those recommendations weren't followed. What's the excuse? Is it cost? And what cost do you place on the lives of children?
Okay, good morning. Today, I can announce that I have accepted the advice of the ACCC to introduce safety and information standards for button batteries and products that contain them.
In 2020, the Minister signed into law the package of reforms which now constitute the Button Battery Standards.
The new mandatory standards will require secure battery compartments for goods that contain Button batteries to prevent children from gaining access to the batteries.
When I got the call that the Minister had signed off on the Button battery regulations, I was so overwhelmed, I burst into tears. I was relieved that the government listened.
I think I was a bit in shock. I think I sat there for about half an hour saying nothing, like, you know. I thought, you know, Summer's death hasn't been in vain. Like, we fought and we won. So change is happening now.
Relevantly, a transition period of 18 months from tomorrow has been provided to allow industry.
We are the first country in the world to have comprehensive product safety standards in place to protect our children against the dangers of Button batteries. The regulation is an important part and will make products much safer, but there's still a great deal to be done.
It wasn't quite clear that it was a battery ingestion in the first instance. I'm really proud of what the ACCC has decided to do because I think it's shown some mettle and they're actually taking on some big industry groups.
It's more likely to cause a damage to the spine. We've certainly seen.
But it won't be the silver bullet to fix this particular issue.
The problem is we just don't know what symptoms they're going to present with in the emergency department.
It worries me sick that I could still miss the next kid that comes through because the symptoms are so non-specific.
Or it could just be pain that the little kids can't always articulate.
Ultimately, what we need is a battery redesign such that if it's swallowed or inserted, it doesn't cause the catastrophic burns that we see today.
We were put in contact with Lorraine very soon after Brittany passed away. It wasn't a very emotional phone call. 5 months since Brittany passed away and Lorraine is coordinating a billboard to warn others.
This is huge. It is.
I'm so proud of her for gaining the strength and determination to do that.
It was important for it to get it up throughout the holiday period because there's a lot of children at home. Mums are busy.
They're just putting it up now. I'll flip the camera around.
So apparently 30,000 people come down here in a week.
When I look back over everything that's happened with Summer, with Bella, with Brittany, it was all preventable.
This isn't a club we wanted to join. However, here we are.
But you know what? There's an amazing connection here.
I truly believe Lorraine, Andrew and I have been brought together for a reason, and our girls clearly up there coordinating all of this.
I can feel Brittany's drive in me.
We basically all agreed that we'll be doing this for the rest of our lives. It's not the end, it's just the beginning.
You don't want another family to